This is where work is progressing with the Newcastle's International Sports Arena in Broadmeadow. It was once an aerodrome. Right in the heart of the city, this flat land looks to be the perfect site for a sports capital for northern New South Wales. This week, the official foundation stone and its plaque were unveiled for the first of the arena, the clubhouse, and the big stand which will house, or to get with its embankments, 30,000 people. Out looking at the project on the occasion of the official opening were some of the men who have made it possible, those who put in a lot of money. Among them, the former Premier, Mr. Renshaw, now Leader of the Opposition, who's provided so much of the capital available for this. Mr. Renshaw, how is it that a government is prepared to put so much money into a project which is not a political football, certainly shouldn't be a political arena, and is for the benefit of one particular area?
Well, first of all, looking around it today, I think it would be an ideal political arena. But it is true that this project here is non-political and a complete community undertaking. And this has been evidenced by the contributions that have been made on all levels of industrialists like Mr. Miller and others, by the sporting clubs and associations, by the local government organisations in the area, in fact the whole of the community, and it's been led by community leaders.
Would you, as a politician, whether in government or not, support this as a site for the Empire Games in the near future?
Well, first of all, we support it on a non-political basis. Both governments have contributed to this. We were the government who initiated, and the present government have continued with it and made the donations towards it. The sites for international projects such as the Olympics are dealt with on a city basis, and Newcastle would be an admirable site. It would need further arenas apart from this arena for an Olympic Games because of the complexities of the different types of sport.
And can you say at this stage that the government, yours or the present government, would contribute on the same scale to the additional arenas needed?
Well, this is hard to say until... I would say if we had the Olympic Games, we'd have to have the participation of all governments, federal and state, like we did in Melbourne, because there was a contribution by the federal government on that occasion.
Perhaps I could put a question to Mr. Miller. Why is industry so interested in spending a lot of money on sport?
Industry always has been interested in spending money on sport, and it's proved that with sporting facilities such as this, it assists industry greatly. In a smaller way, amenity clubs have proved that in the past, and we feel this is something that must help industry in this industrial area.
Are you hoping to see Newcastle attract international competition to this site?
Well, Newcastle has already not only attracted international sports here, but I think their record shows that they've beaten most international football teams here, and I think that Newcastle would attract international sports generally.
Apart from its...
If I might interpose, I think Newcastle's record in relation to knocking down the prestige of some of these international teams that have come here has been rather a remarkable one if you look through back to historical records of it.
Most of these historical records have been broken at the #1 sports ground. In point of fact, this new arena is going to hold very few more people. What's the advantage of the big new arena?
Well, I would anticipate for a start that the facilities around this ground, from the point of view of parking and space, are greater than any other ground that you have in Newcastle for a start. And in this modern age, it's not only a matter of communications of getting to a ground, but in the motor age also that you can take your vehicle and park somewhere in close proximity to it. But as I look at the embankments around this arena today, of course they can go back to double the size by just building an embankment at the back, and you've got ample space to do so, which would make an admirable arena here. It could build up to perhaps the best part of 100,000 people could view in this arena. And of course if it should, this might, I think, would be the maximum you could have in an arena, for the simple reason that if you have them any greater, you get that far away from the centre of activities, namely the sport, that you want a pair of field glasses really to have a look at it, and no doubt they'd look through your television station as easy as that.
This week, even while the crowd was assembling for the official unveiling ceremony, the workmen were still at it, getting the foundations in for the stand in the clubhouse. So work's well underway, and looks like continuing even faster at the Newcastle International Sports Arena.
Doctor, is research into asthma getting anywhere?
I think so. It's improving all the time. We're developing new medicines, and we have foundations now for asthma to inform the public about how to get quick action for their children especially, so that they will avoid asthma as they grow up. They usually start with a rhinitis or a hay fever, and then the asthma comes along in those who are not protected too well.
Asthma is in fact an allergy then?
Asthma is due to an allergy. The real bronchial asthma is an allergic condition, yes.
And is it on the increase?
I would say it's about the same. All the time we have about as much asthma every year.
Is there any chance of curing an asthmatic when he or she is young?
I think we cure them in the sense of keeping them free from symptoms. Many asthmatics are free from symptoms for many years. And if they get rid of their cat or their dog, or feather pillows or dust, they do very well. But if they become careless, negligent, then they may relapse, and their symptoms may come back again.
And the old question of cigarettes and lung cancer, have cigarettes got anything to do with asthma?
Yes, I think asthma is due to an inherited factor, and on top of that they become allergic to something like cats or dogs or something of that nature. And then on top of that, they get all sorts of contributory factors like smoking and psychological affairs and colds and all those and chemical inhalation of chemicals, and all of those make it much worse.
Air pollution would play a part in this too.
Air pollution is a very important factor in increasing asthma. And for instance, during the air pollution times in London and in Pennsylvania and in the States, the number of asthmatics increased enormously, just for temporarily, while the air pollution was on.
Which means then that there'd be more asthmatics in city areas.
There'd be more asthmatics, I think, in city areas. Although there's a great deal in rural population too.
This substantial-looking caravan is the property of the Civil Defence Mobile Kitchen Committee. They've had it for about 6 months, a little more now. Been given to them by the Water Board to turn into a mobile kitchen. In the 6 months, nothing's happened to it. This is where it was delivered half a year ago, and this is where it stands. Well, there's one man who ought to be able to tell us why nothing has happened. This is Mr. David Noakes, who's a committee man on this mobile kitchen committee. Tell me, David, why no action?
Oh, principally because we have no money.
Well, you've got a trailer. What more do you need?
We need many, many hundreds of, almost thousands of dollars to put this vehicle on the road, fully equipped. And then it would be no good to us because we'd have to have a 3 to 5 ton truck to carry it, to tow it along the ground.
Well, what are you going to do with it?
We'd like to sell it, gain as much money from that to produce or purchase a basic section of a small light van, which we and ourselves could build, completed, and equipped so that it could be carried or towed along the road by an average vehicle.
Well, what does the Civil Defence want a mobile kitchen for anyway?
Well, for the purposes of, in the event of troubles in the immediate vicinity, any civil defence personnel that might be occupied on rescue work or signals communication work assisting the civil authorities, we could have a kitchen go out there and feed these people. A classic example of this was the search for the 2 lads lost in the Barrington. The rescue workers up there, the police, bushwalkers, all those people didn't do a starve, but they were short on rations. Had we had this would have been the answer.
There are organisations doing this now. The Salvation Army does a pretty good job. Are they doing a good enough one?
My very word, they are. But on a case like this, the Salvation Army most probably would not be called into it. We feel that if civil defence is going to do a job, we should be self-sufficient.
Well, you've had this trailer now for 2 months longer than the committee actually existed. What have you done in that time?
We've explored the avenue of doing something with this van, and particularly on the advice of an officer sent by the Minister for Transport up here to have a look at this one. We're now quite determined and satisfied that we could not afford it. We could not afford to rebuild this deal. nor could we hope to obtain the uses of a 3 5-ton truck any time we wanted. We want it mobile to get it into some of the inaccessible positions that maybe it might be required.
What are you doing about raising the money for another one?
Well, we are running various functions. As a matter of fact, next Sunday there is to be a car drive leaving from here. It's run by Signals, and here we hope to raise some money. Friday week in the Winter Garden we're running an organ recital by the Newcastle Hammond Organ Society. Here we hope to get a lot of people in, and this will be complete profit.
Isn't your big problem lack of people as much as lack of money?
Most decidedly, more so in fact.
This seems to be a general problem endemic to civil defence in Newcastle.
Yes, I think so. Whether it's fear of the consequences of joining civil defence or whether they think it's a military organisation, I don't know the answer.
What are you doing to get more?
Oh, well, I'm chairman of the recruiting committee, and the recruiting committee has worked very hard to try and bring up some ideas and methods whereby we can convince people that it's necessary to be a member of civil defence.
Don't you think that seeing civil defence in action with a mobile kitchen, among other things, is going to be your best recruiting drive?
Most assuredly. In fact, this was one of the things that the recruiting committee brought up, plus the training headquarters at Astor House in Scott Street. All these things are all just little facets of trying to introduce civil defence to the people and make it attractive to them. Not only attractive, but I feel that people have something to learn, something to gain.
Bob, it hasn't been a very good day today, but on an average, what would you get on a Monday?
Well, a Monday morning is the best morning for sharks, mainly for the reason, the fact that nets are down over the weekend and not touched. The usual working system of the boat is to work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The nets are not touched on a Saturday or a Sunday, and they're hauled on a Monday morning, and that's one of the reasons why there's more sharks in the nets on a Monday morning.
How many would you normally take in?
Well, over the last few months, we've been getting 5 and 6 on a Monday morning.
And in the last month, how many sharks have you had?
Possibly, let me see now, about, well, we had 22 sharks last term for 3 weeks' work.
And how's it looking for the summer months now this year? Is it looking any worse or any better than previous years?
Well, to be honest, this is the worst period we've seen for a long time. The sharks have been thicker over the last 2 months than we've seen for quite a number of years. Of course, they may peter out. It's hard to say. Probably they might disappear. Usually you catch large numbers of them and they do clear out away from the beaches, but so far this season has been one of the worst seasons we've seen for this time of the year for a long time.
Newcastle beaches seem to have one of the worst reputations on the New South Wales coast for shark attacks in the last 30 or 40 years, but there haven't been many for quite a while. Is it very likely that people can become victims of shark attacks, or is it something that's highly unlikely?
Well, there's always the possibility that somebody could be taken with a shark. The sharks are in the water, they're there, and if things are just right, the shark happens to be in the vicinity and he's hungry, well, he could possibly take somebody.
Would a shark normally go for a human, or would it be a mistake for a fish?
Well, I think anybody floundering around the water, a shark is definitely attracted by vibrations, and anybody swimming close around, a shark happens to be around, he's hungry, or probably a shark carrying young ones, or have young ones close around her and she's savage, that is the most likely time that they will attack. It's quite a remarkable thing that the majority of the attacks are in late January, February, March, and it is the time that the sharks have had their young ones. Their young are around them, or they're carrying their young.
Bob, you fish the winter as well as the summer. Is there any real point in putting the nets out in the winter for sharks?
Oh, it's a system that the departments stick to. They claim that the systematic meshing of the beaches, the continuous meshing, there's no lapse in the meshing, and they claim that that is a deterrent to sharks. The consistent meshing there keeps the sharks away from the beaches. It's exactly the same as fishing for fish. If you put a net out in the one place all the time, it isn't very long before no fish will come near that area, and that is their idea of the shark meshing, the consistent meshing winter and summer.
But your catches would fall away sharply in winter, would they?
Oh, yes. You've mainly get a certain species of shark along in the winter months, a cold water shark, black pointers, which are normally a shark that inhabits water around the 62, 63 degree surface temperature.
And what's the biggest shark you've caught?
Around 15 feet. There has been a bigger shark caught here in Newcastle. Just before I came on the boat, there was a 16-foot tiger caught. At 15 and a half feet is the maximum we've caught.